Every time I reach out, I feel the distance growing, as if you're slipping further away from me. I can't help but wonder if my calls are pushing you farther from me than bringing you closer. Every time I call you, it's like the space between us widens, and I lose a little more of you each time. I dial your number, but it feels like I'm reaching out into an abyss, waiting for you to pull away. Each time the phone rings, I fear that you'll answer with a little less warmth than before. I wish I could turn back time before each call felt like I was losing you a little more. Every time I hear your voice, it's like I'm clinging to a thread that's slowly unraveling. It's like we're fading in different directions, and every call is just a reminder of how far apart we're becoming. The more I call, the more I feel like I'm only holding onto a memory, losing you with every ring. When I hear your voice, it's as if I'm listening to someone who's no longer really there. It feels like every word we share is weighted with the silence of what we're losing. I can't help but feel like every call is just one more step away from the person I once knew. Every time I call, it's like I'm grasping at something fading away, trying to hold on to something that's slipping through my fingers. The more I try to reach you, the further I feel from the person I once felt so close to. Each conversation feels like a goodbye, a quiet surrender to the distance that's growing between us. I long for the days when each call felt like a reunion, not a reminder of the space between us. It's as if every ring is an echo of what we used to have, but it's growing quieter with each call. Every time we talk, I feel the weight of unspoken words, the things we no longer share. I call, but all I hear is the distance that has grown too vast for us to bridge. It's like I'm dialing the number of a stranger, and every time you answer, I feel like I lose you more. Each conversation makes me wonder if we're ever really speaking to each other or just ghosts of what we once were. The more I try to reach you, the more I feel like I'm calling out to someone who is slipping away from me. Every call feels like I'm chasing a memory, desperately trying to hold on to something that's no longer there. I wish I could stop calling, but something inside me is desperate to hear your voice, even if it means losing you. Each time the phone rings, I wonder if it's the last time I'll hear your voice, or if we're just growing further apart. The more I hear you, the less I feel connected to you. It's like we're fading in different directions. I reach out, but all I get in return is the empty space that grows between us with every call. Every conversation we have feels like a farewell, And I can't help but wonder if you're slipping away for good. I thought calls would bring us closer, but now they feel like a painful reminder of how far we are. It's like every time we speak, I'm losing a little piece of the connection we once shared. When I call, I feel like I'm reaching out for something that's no longer mine, a piece of you that's fading away. The more I call, the more I feel like I'm losing you to the distance between us that can't be bridged. Each call makes me wonder if we're just holding on to a thread of something that's already gone. Every time I hear your voice, I feel like it's not really you anymore, just a shadow of the person I once knew. I keep calling, but each time it feels like I'm further away from the person I used to be close to. Every conversation feels like we're talking through a wall, and I wonder if we'll ever break through it. Each call is a reminder of how the space between us keeps growing, no matter how much I try to close the gap. I thought calling you would bring me closer, but instead, I feel like I'm losing you more with each conversation. It's like we're speaking different languages now, and every call only deepens the confusion between us. Every time I dial your number, I fear that it's another step towards losing the connection we once had. The more I hear from you, the more I wonder if you're really there or if I'm just holding on to an empty echo. It's like we're drifting further apart, and every time we talk, it only makes the distance seem more real. Every call feels like a test of how much longer we can hold on to what we once had. I wish I didn't feel this way, but every time I reach out, it feels like I'm losing you bit by bit. Every conversation leaves me with the haunting thought that we're both moving in opposite directions. I try to call to reach you, but each time it feels like I'm further away from who we used to be. It's like every word we speak is a reminder that we're both slipping away from each other. With every ring, I wonder if we're holding on to something that's already lost. Each time I try to reach you, it feels like I'm standing in the shadows of what we once were. Every call is a silent cry for the closeness we're losing, and I wonder if you feel it too. It's like every conversation is a step toward something unrecognizable, a place where we no longer exist together. Every time I dial your number, it feels like I'm searching for something that's no longer there, a part of you that's slipped away. I keep calling, but it's as if each word exchanged is a reminder of the growing distance between us. The more I hear your voice, the less it feels like I'm hearing you and more like a stranger. Every call leaves me wondering if you're slipping further away from me with each word spoken. It's like every ring is a reminder that I'm losing the person I once felt so connected to. I dial your number, but it feels like I'm dialing into a void, hoping for something that isn't there anymore. Each conversation feels like an attempt to patch up something that's already broken beyond repair. I wish I could stop reaching for you, but every time I do, it feels like I'm losing you more. Every call leaves me with the unsettling feeling that we're just drifting further apart, no matter how much I try. I call, but each time it feels like I'm calling out for someone who no longer exists. Every time I speak to you, it feels like I'm losing a little bit of the person I once knew. It's like we're holding on to something that's already slipping away, and every call is just a painful reminder. Every time I hear your voice, I feel a little more disconnected, as if we're not speaking the same language anymore. I keep calling, but every time you answer, I feel the distance between us growing, leaving me hollow. Each call feels like a delicate thread unraveling, and I wonder how much longer we can keep pretending things are the same. Every time I try to talk to you, it feels like I'm speaking to a version of you that's no longer here. I reach out, but it feels like I'm searching for something that's slipping through my fingers with every ring. Every conversation we have leaves me with the thought that we're both silently slipping away from each other. Each time I call, it feels like I'm losing more of the connection we once had, as if time is stealing it from us. It's like every word spoken is a step further away from the bond we once shared, and I'm helpless to stop it. Each time we talk, I can't shake the feeling that we're both letting go of something precious without realizing it. Every time I hear your voice, it feels like I'm losing you in a way I never imagined. I thought calls would bring us closer, but now they feel like they're pushing us further apart. Each conversation makes me wonder if I'm holding on to something that's already faded, something that's no longer real. I keep reaching for you, but every time I do, it feels like I'm slipping further into a place where you don't exist. Every time we talk, I wonder if we're just playing pretend, trying to hold on to a connection that's already been lost. I wish I didn't feel this way, but every time I call, it feels like I'm losing you just a little bit more. Every time I try to speak to you, it feels like I'm talking to the ghost of who you used to be. I keep dialing, but every time I do, I feel more and more like I'm just chasing something that's already gone. Each conversation leaves me with the feeling that we're both silently drifting away, no matter how hard we try to hold on. Every time I hear your voice, I feel a little more disconnected, as if you're becoming someone else in front of me. It's like every call is a desperate attempt to hold on to something that's slipping further out of reach. Every time I call, it's as if I'm stepping into a space where I'm no longer welcome, where we no longer belong. I dial your number, but each time it feels like I'm hearing an echo of what we once were, fading away with every ring. Every call is a reminder of how much we've changed and how far we've drifted from where we once stood. I keep calling, but every time I do, it feels like I'm losing a little more of who you are and who we used to be. Each time I speak to you, I feel the weight of what's slipping away, and I wonder how much longer we can hold on. I wish I could stop calling, but every time I reach out, it feels like I'm losing you bit by bit. Every conversation we have feels like a step toward letting go, even though neither of us wants to admit it. I keep calling, but it feels like I'm talking to someone who is fading away piece by piece with each passing day. Every time we talk, I feel the growing distance between us, and I wonder how much longer this connection will last. Each time I dial your number, it feels like I'm reaching for something that's already gone, trying to hold on to something fading.